I never thought I'd be the guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am. My name's Mark, and I've been married to Emily for about 5 years now. We met in college, and she was always known for her fiery attitude, her sharp tongue, and a kind of bitchy confidence that I found kind of attractive at first. But lately, things have been off. Small signs, I guess. She's been distant, more bitchy than usual, snapping at me over nothing, and staying out later than she used to. I figured she was just stressed at work, or maybe just tired of me, but I brushed it off. It wasn't until I started noticing her phone acting weird, her deleting messages, hiding her screen when I'd walk into the room, that I got suspicious. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I could feel something was wrong. That nagging feeling of betrayal. Still, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, thinking maybe she was just tired of lying about small stuff. Then a couple of nights ago, I decided to check her phone when she was in the shower. I know I shouldn't have, but I was desperate to know what was going on. And there it was, text from some guy named Jake talking about meeting up after hours and how she was so sick of pretending everything was fine. The messages weren't just flirtatious, they were downright dirty. I saw them and my stomach sank. I read her talking about how she was finally going to get what she wanted from him and that she was done pretending with me. My head was spinning. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. My wife, my partner, was screwing around with some guy who's basically her boss's assistant, some nobody she met in grad school, someone I knew she was mentoring. I couldn't believe it at first. This wasn't just some innocent flirtation, it was an affair, and she was lying to my face about everything. I felt this hot wave of rage and heartbreak all at once. I had always thought we had a good thing, or at least I convinced myself that way. Turns out I was blind. I had no idea she'd crossed every ethical boundary, messing around with her own graduate advisor, a mentor I trusted, a man who was supposed to be guiding her, not screwing her behind my back. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, clutching her phone, just staring at those texts. I couldn't believe she'd do this to me. I started wondering how long this had been going on, how many times she'd lied to my face about where she was or who she was with. All those nights she said she was working late or had to stay late at the office. She was probably with him. That thought made me feel sick. I kept thinking about that damn advisor's office, picturing her sneaking in after hours, closing the door behind her. It was sickening, knowing she crossed every boundary, knowing that the woman I married, the woman I thought I knew, had been cheating on me with someone who was supposed to be mentoring her. I didn't tell her I found out yet. Not right away. I needed to think, to process how I was going to handle this. I mean, how do you confront someone who's so good at lying? Emily's the kind of woman who can talk her way out of anything, who always has an excuse ready, who can manipulate her way out of a corner. I knew if I brought it up in a heated moment, she'd deny everything, call me paranoid or worse, turn it around and make me feel like I was the one overreacting. But I also knew I couldn't pretend I didn't see what I saw. That's when I decided I'd confront her properly, but I had to plan it carefully. I spent the next day watching her, waiting for the right moment. She came home from work acting normal, bitchy as ever, but I saw the flicker of guilt in her eyes. I could tell she was trying to hide something, and that only made me angrier. When she finally went to bed, I stayed up, going through everything again in my head. I kept thinking about how she always lied, how smooth she was at covering her tracks. She's a bitch, honestly, the way she lies so effortlessly. And I knew, deep down, everything was about to change. I didn't know what words I'd use or what the outcome would be, but I was done being the fool. I couldn't keep pretending she was innocent anymore. That night I made a decision. I was going to confront her, and I was going to get to the bottom of this. Whatever it took. I knew this wasn't just some fling. It was something more, something that crossed every line, and I was done being the guy who gets cheated on. I was ready for the fallout. I just didn't know how bad it was going to get. The next morning, I woke up with a headache and a stomach that felt like I'd been punched. I knew I had to say something, but I didn't want to do it in a way that would make her spiral or go on the defensive right away. So I waited until she was out the door for work. She always leaves early, doesn't she? And then I started planning how I'd approach her. I needed to be calm but firm. I wanted answers, not a fight, though I knew deep down that was probably inevitable. I threw on some clothes, grabbed her phone, and took it to the garage. I didn't want her to see what I was doing. I didn't want her to know I'd been spying on her. I just wanted to gather everything I could find before I confronted her. I looked through her messages again, her social media, and even her email account. I needed facts, proof, solid proof. I wanted her to know I wasn't just paranoid or jealous or overreacting. That's when I found even more. She had been meeting him after hours more often than I'd guessed. Texts from her to him late at night, talking about office meetings, secret rendezvous, sneaking out of her own house. I saw pictures of them in places I didn't recognize, always with that same sneaky tone. And then I saw the most damning message, her telling him she'd finally leave everything behind, that she was done pretending for my sake, and how she'd never felt this alive. I couldn't believe it. That was when I realized she'd been lying to me for months, maybe longer. I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I needed to know what she was thinking, what she was feeling, so I called her when she was at work. Her voice sounded clipped, irritated, like she knew I was about to ruin her day. I told her I needed to see her when she got home. Her response was a bitchy, dismissive whatever. Like I was bothering her or she didn't care. That's what I got for trusting her, I guess. When she finally walked through the door that evening, I was already sitting in the living room, waiting. She looked at me like I was a stranger, that fake smile on her face. I didn't waste much time. I just laid it out. I told her I knew everything about the texts, the meetings, the fucking affair. Her face twisted into anger, then guilt, then defiance. She denied it at first, of course, calling me crazy, paranoid, and accusing her without proof. But I had proof, real proof, and I threw her phone on the table. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she was in control, and she started lying. Said it was just emotional cheating, that nothing physical had happened, that I was overreacting. Even when I told her I saw her messages, her pictures, I could see the flicker of panic in her eyes. She kept saying it was a mistake, that she didn't mean for it to happen, that it was just sex, and that I should forgive her because she loved me. Yeah, right. That's what she said with her lips, but her eyes told a different story. My mind was racing. I felt this burning rage and sadness coexisting, like I was breaking apart inside. I wanted to scream at her, call her out, tell her how worthless she'd become in my eyes. But I stayed quiet, watching her try to spin her lies, trying to convince me she wasn't the cheating bitch I now knew she was. I was furious, but I knew I had to keep my cool. Lost it, I'd lose any chance of getting the truth out of her, or of controlling what was coming next. In that moment, I realized I'd been a fool to trust her so blindly. I'd always believed she was a strong, confident woman, but now I saw her for what she truly was, a manipulative, lying bitch who'd crossed every line, including the one I thought was sacred, our marriage. She thought she could get away with it because she's good at lying, because she's bitchy enough to turn everything around if she needed to. But I wasn't going to let her. I had enough. The betrayal hit me hard, and I knew I had to decide what I was going to do from here. I looked her straight in the eye and told her, "This is over. I want you gone. I don't want to see your face again until I say so." I saw her flinch, that fake bitchy smile fading into something more desperate. She tried to argue, to plead, to deny, but I shut her down. I told her I'd call a lawyer if I had to, get everything in order. And I did it with a calmness that surprised even me, because inside I was anything but calm. That night I couldn't sleep. I felt numb, betrayed, and filled with a kind of cold resolve I'd never experienced before. I kept replaying everything in my head, wondering how I missed all the signs, how someone I loved could lie and cheat so easily. I knew this was going to change everything, and I don't think I'll ever look at her the same way again. My life as I knew it was over, and I had no idea what the future held. All I knew was that I'd been betrayed in the worst way possible, and I'd have to figure out how to pick up the pieces. After I told her it was over, she didn't leave right away. Instead, she sat there, looking at me with that same bitchy smirk, trying to come up with some kind of excuse or manipulate her way out of it. I could see the wheels turning in her head, the way she was trying to make me doubt myself or feel guilty. She started crying, big fake tears that I knew weren't genuine. That's her thing, crying and acting like she's the victim when she's the one who screwed everything up. She kept insisting that it was just sex, that she didn't love him, that I was overreacting. She said she was stressed, confused, and had no one else to talk to. Yeah, right. Like I was supposed to buy that bullshit. I told her I didn't care why she did it, that it didn't matter anymore. What mattered is that she crossed every damn line and I wasn't going to pretend it was okay. That's when she got bitchy again, snapping at me, calling me paranoid and accusing me of trying to control her life. She was turning it around, trying to make me feel guilty, like I was the one at fault. I didn't buy it. I knew her game. I saw through her lies, her fake tears, her manipulative shit. I told her to pack her stuff and get out. She argued a little more, saying I was overreacting, that I didn't understand how stressed she was, how she needed me, how she was sorry. But all I saw was her trying to save her ass. She finally stormed off, yelling that I was overreacting, that she didn't cheat, that I was ruining everything. But I didn't care anymore. I had made up my mind. Once she was gone, I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I sat alone in the dark, staring at the empty space she left behind. All those years of marriage, all the promises, all the good times, gone in an instant. That bitchy, manipulative woman who once told me I was never enough had thrown it all away for some pathetic affair. I felt cold, angry, and broken inside, but also strangely relieved. I finally knew the truth, and I was done pretending everything was fine. Over the next few days, I took care of all the legal stuff, calling a lawyer, sorting out the house, figuring out what I'd do about the apartment she'd been staying at. I didn't want to drag it out, and honestly, I didn't want to see her again. Every time I thought about her lying to my face, I got more furious. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built just for some stupid affair? She always was the bitchy one, but this was just beyond. The shock of it all was overwhelming. I'd never been cheated on before, never thought I'd be in this position. I kept wondering if I missed something, if there was some sign I didn't see. But no. She was always the one who knew how to hide her tracks, always the bitchy, manipulative woman who got what she wanted and didn't care who she hurt. I kept thinking about her lying to my face, the sneaking around, the secret meetings. It made me sick. I also started thinking about how I'd been so blind. I always believed she was strong, confident, that she loved me. Turns out she was just pretending to be the perfect wife, the perfect partner. And I was just another fool who believed her lies. That realization hurts worse than the betrayal itself. But I guess that's what they don't tell you, how deep the heartbreak can go when you find out someone you trusted has been lying all along. Now I'm left with a lot of questions. Was I ever enough for her? Did she ever really love me? Or was I just someone to keep her comfortable while she screwed around? I guess I'll never fully know. What I do know is that I'm done. Done with the lies, the manipulation, the bitchy attitude that hid a much darker side. I've decided I won't chase her, won't beg her to stay. I'm done being the fool she made me out to be. It's been a brutal couple of weeks. I'm still trying to process everything, trying not to drown in the anger and sadness. But I've also realized I'm stronger than I thought. I'll get through this, even if it takes time. I've learned that some people, no matter how much you love or trust them, are just not worth the pain they cause. And that's a hard lesson. But it's one I needed to learn. Now I just need to figure out what comes next. The days after she left felt like I was living in someone else's life, not my own. I'd wake up in the morning and the house was eerily silent, no bitchy comments, no snarky remarks, just empty space and memories that haunted me. Every corner seemed to whisper her lies, every piece of furniture held a ghost of what we had. I'd sit there staring at the walls, trying to piece together how everything fell apart so fast. I kept asking myself over and over, how did I miss all those signs? How did I not see what she was really doing? I spent hours going over those texts she had sent Jake, trying to make sense of it all. Part of me felt numb, like I was trying to detach from the betrayal, like my mind was refusing to fully accept it. But another part was furious, furious at her, furious at myself for trusting her so blindly, furious at everything that had gone wrong. I couldn't shake the image of her sneaking out late at night, the way she'd lie with that bitchy smirk on her face when I confronted her. That smirk, it was like she was proud of herself, like she knew she was getting away with something. I started calling friends and family, trying to act normal, but inside I was crumbling. My best friend, Joe, came over that first night. I hadn't told him everything yet, just that we were having some issues. I didn't want to admit the full extent, not yet. But he saw right through me. After a few drinks, I finally spilled everything, the texts, the affair, the betrayal. Joe listened quietly, his face darkening with anger. He kept saying, "Dude, you gotta dump her. No way she's worth this mess." But I didn't want to hear that yet. I needed to process it myself to figure out how I was going to pick up the pieces. I remember sitting in my living room, staring at my phone, debating whether I should even call her. Part of me wanted to hear her voice, to see if she'd truly admit to what she did. But another part knew that hearing her would only make it harder, because deep down I knew she'd deny everything, spin some bullshit about how she was sorry, or claim she was confused again. Still, I dialed her number just to hear her tone. She answered with that bitchy attitude, pretending like nothing had happened, like I was just overreacting again. I felt my blood boil. That's when I decided I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I told her I wanted to meet in person, just once, to get some answers. She hesitated, then agreed, probably thinking she could smooth everything over with her usual charm. I knew better. I knew she'd try to twist things, try to guilt-trip me into forgiving her. But I was done being the nice guy. I planned to lay it all out, no holding back. I wanted her to see the fury I was holding inside. When she arrived that evening, she tried to act innocent, bitchy as ever, wearing that fake smile. I didn't waste time. I laid it out straight. I knew she'd been cheating, that I'd seen her messages, her pictures, everything. Her eyes flickered with that same fake annoyance. She told me I was overreacting, that I was seeing things, that I was paranoid. I cut her off and threw her phone on the table again. I told her I didn't want to hear her lies anymore, that I knew she'd been lying from the start. Her face turned red with anger, but I didn't care. She started crying, that fake crying again, trying to guilt me into feeling sorry for her. She said she was stressed, that she had no one else to talk to, that she needed him because I wasn't enough anymore. I looked at her and said, "You weren't just talking, Emily. You were screwing him behind my back. You crossed every line." She tried to deny it, to make it seem like it was just an emotional thing, that it didn't mean anything. But I knew better. I knew the truth. That moment I felt the last shred of respect I had for her shatter. All those years I gave her, all the trust I invested, she threw it away. I told her she was leaving, no more excuses, no more lies. She argued, of course, calling me crazy, saying I was overreacting, that I should forgive her because she loved me. That was laughable. She always threw love around like it was a fucking weapon, like it justified everything she was doing. But love doesn't cheat, doesn't lie, doesn't manipulate. When she finally stormed out, I was left sitting there, feeling a strange mixture of relief and overwhelming sadness. I knew this was the end of the line. I decided I'd start the process of moving on, no matter how much it hurt. I'd never trusted her again, not after what I saw. And I knew I had to find a way to rebuild myself, without her lies or her bitchy attitude that hid a much darker side. I stayed up that night, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. It was like I was trying to memorize her betrayal so I wouldn't forget it. I realized I'd been a fool to think she was different. She hadn't loved me. She'd loved the attention, the excitement, the thrill of cheating behind my back, and I'd been too blind to see it. But now I was awake. I saw her for what she was, just another bitch who thought she could get away with everything, including destroying my life. That's the brutal truth I had to face. The days that followed were a blur of lawyers, packing, and trying to keep my head straight amid the chaos. Every morning I woke up with that hollow feeling in my chest, like someone had peeled away a layer of my soul. I was doing all the adult stuff, talking to attorneys, figuring out what I was entitled to, planning how to split up the house. But underneath, I was just numb. The betrayal was so raw it was like I'd been gutted. And the worst part, I kept thinking about her. That bitchy, manipulative woman who thought she could get away with it all, smiling that fake smirk even as she was abandoning everything we'd built. I kept remembering the moments she'd lied to my face, the way she'd pretend to be innocent, the way her eyes flickered with guilt but she'd still lie, trying to manipulate her way out of it. That memory haunted me. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to her bitchy game. And then I remembered that smirk, the one she'd always wear when she was up to something. That contemptuous little smile that said she knew she was better than everyone else. I realized I'd been nothing more than a pawn in her game, and that realization made me even angrier. I threw myself into the legal process, trying to stay busy so I wouldn't drown in my own thoughts. But I couldn't escape the feelings: anger, sadness, a deep sense of betrayal. I hated how she'd always thought she was so clever, so bitchy and manipulative, thinking she could screw around and then come back like nothing happened. That's what she tried to do in our last meeting. She sat there, crying fake tears, calling me paranoid and crazy, trying to make me doubt myself. She had no remorse, only that bitchy attitude that she's perfected over the years. I started going to the gym more, trying to channel my rage into something productive. Every rep, every sweat-drenched moment was a small act of revenge, I guess. It was the only thing that kept me from completely losing it. I'd look in the mirror and think, "You're better than her, Mark. You're better than that manipulative bitch." I kept telling myself I was going to be the guy who gets destroyed by a woman like her. I was going to come out of this stronger, even if it killed me inside. At the same time, I couldn't help but feel broken. That deep ache of betrayal, the way she'd lied and manipulated her way into another man's arms, left scars. I'd trusted her with everything. My heart, my future, my life. And she threw it all away for some affair with her advisor, that arrogant bastard who thought he could take advantage of her. I remembered the way she'd sneer at me when I confronted her, trying to act like she was the victim. That bitchy attitude she always had, hiding her guilt behind a mask of defiance. I also started reflecting on what I'd learned from all this. Trust is a fragile thing, I realized. You think you know someone, but they can turn out to be the opposite of what they appear. And sometimes, the biggest betrayals come from people who pretend to care. The ones who are manipulative enough to hide their true selves behind a bitchy smile. That's what she was, a master manipulator, a woman who thought she could lie her way through life and get away with everything. Well, she was wrong. I decided I wasn't going to chase her or try to get closure. What's the point? She's gone and I have to move on. I started making plans for my future, focusing on rebuilding what I could. I got a new job, started seeing friends again, even went on a couple of dates just to remind myself there was life beyond her. But no matter what I did, the betrayal still lingered, like a dark cloud hanging over me. I knew I'd never forget what she did, how she lied, how she manipulated me for her own bitchy gain. And deep inside, I wondered if I'd ever trust anyone again. Can you trust a woman who lied so effortlessly, who thought her own feelings were more important than the vows she took? That's the thing, she never really cared. She was just playing a game and I was the fool who believed in her. I guess you live and learn, the hard way, the bitter way, but I'd survive. I had to. I had no choice but to pick up the pieces and move forward, even if part of me still felt broken. That's what this has all taught me. Trust is fragile, betrayal cuts deep, and some women, some people, are just manipulative, bitchy liars who think they can get away with anything. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I'd survived the worst kind of betrayal, and even though it hurts like hell, I'm not going to let her define me anymore. I'll come out of this battered but better, because somewhere inside, I know I deserve better than that manipulative, lying bitch. Now, after all the legal stuff is settled and I've moved out of the house, I find myself sitting here, trying to make sense of everything. It's strange how a woman I loved, trusted, and built my life with could turn into someone so manipulative and bitchy, capable of crossing every ethical line just to get her way. I keep thinking about the way she lied, the way she sneered at me when I confronted her, that false bravado she always wore like armor. She thought she was clever, that she could get away with everything. But in the end, she was just another manipulative bitch who thought her own pleasure was worth destroying everything else. What I've learned from this is simple but brutal. Never underestimate how far someone will go when they think they're above the rules. Trust has to be earned every day, and sometimes people show you their true colors too late. I was naive to think she was different, to think she loved me enough to stay faithful. Her actions proved otherwise. She was just the kind of woman who thinks she's entitled. entitled to cheat, lie, manipulate, and then cry crocodile tears to make herself look like the victim. That's the truth I finally see now, and it's a bitter taste I'll carry with me forever. But here's the thing, I refuse to let her define who I am after this. I won't be the guy who gets destroyed by betrayal, even if it hurts like hell. I've learned to stand up and take control. I've started rebuilding my life piece by piece. I've gone back to the gym, focusing that anger into something productive. I've started working on myself, working on healing. I know I'll never forget what she did, but I've also realized that I don't need her to define me. I'm still here, still standing, and I'll keep moving. Forward, I guess this story is a warning for others. Be careful who you trust. Never ignore the signs, those little bitchy smirks, the secretive texts, the late nights with someone else. Because if you do, you might end up like me, standing in the rubble of a life you thought was solid, trying to pick up the pieces of a betrayal so deep it nearly broke you. But take it from me. There's strength in walking away, even when it feels impossible. There's dignity in facing the truth, no matter how ugly it is. So I'll say this. Learn to trust your gut, pay attention to the red flags, and don't be afraid to walk away from a woman who's manipulative, lying, and bitchy enough to throw everything away just to get some fleeting pleasure. Because in the end, your happiness and integrity matter more. And I genuinely hope anyone else going through this mess finds the courage to end it before it destroys what's left of you. I've lost a lot, but I'm finally starting to see that I can still rebuild. Without her, without the lies, and without her bitchy attitude clouding my life. That's all I've got to say. Life's complicated, but betrayal cuts deep. Still, I've learned that even after the worst, you can come out stronger. And maybe, just maybe, you can find someone who's worth your trust, someone who's honest, kind, and real. Not some manipulative, bitchy liar who thinks she's above everything. Because I deserve better, and so do you.